Ask the Podcast Coach for September 20th, 2025.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it is Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live according to the thing at the bottom of the screen. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there is absolutely nobody. Because Jim has whacked his back. And so, welcome to Dave's Hell. There's nothing Dave loves more than doing this show solo. It's always a bit of a train wreck. Glad you're here. But if you want more Jim Collison, of course, go over to homegadgetgeeks.com. And so I will be pointing out a lot today that if you go to askthepodcastcoach.com/question, you could be right there. You could be Jim Collison today. So I will be taking your questions. I am prepared. I went and found lots and lots of questions, but there's nothing more fun than trying to read the chat as you're talking and trying to figure out what is going on with that. Well, I want to give a special shout out to Randy Black on the passing of his co-host. I don't know about you guys, but I am about done with death. A little too much this week, and just nastiness and things like that. And you know what makes that stuff almost tolerable, but not quite, is a good coffee pour, which I don't have any coffee. I have my handy dandy, oh, wow, how do you pronounce that? Owala. Owala. Sounds like some sort of, I don't know. The Indians called this Owala, which is, Cherokee for water. So cheers to everyone as we pretend to pour some coffee here. And that Owala pour is brought to you by my good friend Mark. He said clicking the button. There we go. From our podcastbranding.co. I have used Mark multiple times to do my artwork. Might have a new one coming, but that's a secret. We can't tell anybody yet. And the beautiful thing about Mark is, number one, he's a podcaster. So that whole it's like a radio show, but it's not kind of thing. And Randy, I see you, buddy. And there we go. I will let him in backstage. And if you want to look good, because, they're going to see you before they hear you, that is something that Mark can do. He can make you look beauteous and beautiful and professional and all that kind of first impression kind of stuff. And the beauty of it is, again, besides being a podcaster, he's been a graphic artist for over 30 years. Yeah, 30. That's 30. And he's going to give you that one-on-one kind of service that nobody on Fiverr, nobody else is going to give you. So go check out podcastbranding.co. That's podcastbranding.co. One more time, podcastbranding.co. Tell him Dave and Jim sent you. And if Jim was here, he'd be holding up his coffee cup and would have that logo that says, based on a true story. Look, if you want, you're sitting in the theater, the lights go down, a black screen appears, and it says, based on a true story. And you always wonder, I wonder how much of this, like when they say based, are we talking 10%? Are we talking 90%? Well, there's one place to find out, and that's Based on a True Story podcast. Our buddy Dan over there brings on somebody who knows the actual subject, and then they go over the movie, and you find out how much of that was based on a true story. So, Dan, thank you for your sponsorship. We deeply appreciate it. And now we get to see if Dave can figure out how to add Randy to, let's see, I see him on Zoom now. See, I should have practiced this before we went. Can I drag and drop you from Zoom into, nope, I can't drag and drop you. Oh, here we go, wrong button. I click on add because I want to add, yes, I want to add a, now I see Randy in this, and now assign to placeholder, guest one, there he is, the one and only. I know it says Jim Collison, but Randy, my as the old saying goes, and I know I'm being snarky here, but I'm not. Thoughts and prayers, buddy.
No, that's part of why I popped on. I wanted to thank you and thank other people in the community who, throughout the last week, have reached out, have offered exactly that. Jim was just a month short of his 70th birthday,
Mm.
and had a we talked before. He was in stage 4 colon cancer, and this was not the cancer that took Jim from us.
Yeah.
It was actually a gallbladder.
Oh man.
And an infection then got out of the gallbladder into his system, and they removed it, but he never woke up, and it was a week of heartache. I've been friends with his daughter for a while because I've been working with him on the show, but had never met her in person, and met her for the first time yesterday, helping her to try to find things at his business where we recorded and stuff. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. He was a powerful force in what he did. Well known in the basketball coaching world.
Yeah.
But that was not what he wanted to be remembered for. He wanted to be remembered as someone who helped anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why we were doing the show.
Didn't you kind of know that going in when you started?
I've known him for 30 years. Met him when I was a teenager the first time, and it was my pleasure to be able to try to help him. We spent hours sitting in a hot room upstairs at his business that we had just sound treated. We had just gotten backdrop stands and moving blankets to kind of close us in to help sound treat it. And that was the last thing. That was the last episode we recorded. We finished that night. We had already had things planned for the next episode, ready to go. As we're leaving every time, because he and I had gotten very close.
Yeah.
I tell him, I love you, brother. And do, fist bump or, handshake, that classic, real fast man hug. But this time was different. And I don't know what was different what was different with Jim, other than he grabbed me and he embraced me when he told me he loved me. That's the last time I talked to him.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that that's the last time I talked to him.
Well, and I'm just glad you guys were able to record what you could, Yeah. Because now,
and that's it. His talking when I was there with his daughter and her boyfriend yesterday, and talking to them. His wife called, and I've gotten to know his wife very well over the 6 months we started this project, and she asked me to go through and pull things out from the recordings, things that he said, some of his little stuff he said, or thoughts he had about stuff. They're working on getting pictures and things together, so we're gonna put together a video of pictures of Jim and his family and things he did over time, and pull some music and stuff in, and then insert those clips of Jim saying these things. But I will say that probably for the rest of my life, the text tone on my phone will be this:
"Bam, son."
I will never let go of that.
There you
recording. He became one of my closest friends in this time that we've been together, and the memories I have from this short amount of time are never ever going to go away. But again, thank you to everyone who reached out, who said things, who said thank you, kind words of we're praying for you, we're praying for Jim. At this point, it's a matter of supporting his family as much as possible. I'll be okay. I'll be fine. I'm going to miss him, but I miss, because this is the most fun I've had in the decade I've been in this space, was working with Jim. And, we made it 11 episodes. So we got past that magic 7 that everybody's always talking about. But I don't know if I'm going to continue with that show. I'm waiting on things. We've got a request out for anybody who knew him. I've got a Google Voice number to call the number and just tell a Jim Clayton story. And we're going to put that all together for the family. We're going to put it out as an episode on the feed. But I'm looking to also, maybe sit down, and I mentioned it to his daughter, sit down with his daughter and his son and his wife and just talk about Jim. I've even got a recording of his 2 adorable little granddaughters saying "Bam, son," that we could use and do stuff with. So, again, thank you to everybody. It's so appreciated. the support that was out there. And I knew there were certain people that if I reached out, like you, Daniel J. Lewis, Ralph is amazing. Even reaching out to some people may know him, Jimmy Pruitt, pastor of Bridge Church down in Fredericksburg, Texas, where the Podfather goes to church, and even the Podfather, reaching out to Adam. The prayers and things that were coming from the community were tremendous, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my friend. Well, I appreciate it, and races. That's an amazing gift you can give to the family. Yeah, it's. I don't know where it is. That's the part that bothers me. But I don't remember what my mom sounded like. And she's somewhere we have on a VHS tape, and she wasn't even on camera. She forgot that cameras record audio as well. But the fact that we have, hours and hours of Todd Cochran, and we've got, Jim now on tape, and that's precious material there.
Yeah. So. And that was part of what, his daughter was pushing him. You have to do this.
Yeah.
We need people to have this recordings of you. We need people to know that. And he's got tons of stuff himself. He posted 4, 5, 6 little video clips every single day. And suddenly on Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, that stopped.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, maybe he's not feeling good today. And like every Wednesday, he would send me his notes off of notes I put together and say, hey, here's this, if you want to look over it, so we're ready for tomorrow. And he didn't do that. I was like, well, maybe he just doesn't feel good. He'll do it in the morning. And then while I was at work on that Thursday morning, his daughter sent me the message, and it was a week, just over a week, and we lost him.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, hang in there, my friend.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Yep.
And again, thanks to everybody. Love the community. We're at a point in our country and in our world where we have a lot of headbanging and disagreements and strife, and just. It ain't worth it.
Yeah, in the end,
it's not worth it anymore. I just don't. It's not worth it.
That's me. I woke up this morning and people are still going on about Jimmy Kimmel, and I was just like, can't we all just get along? It's crazy. Yeah. But all right, my friend, we'll hang in there.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Yep, we'll see you. Oh my goodness, yeah. Brad brings up a question here. And that's how it works, by the way. Good. You just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/question and I will bring you in. Should you make clips of the funny or special comments made during every show you do so you can make an annual one? That is the way to do it. Because what happens is it's December and you're like, oh, I'd like to take a week off for, Christmas or whatever. And then you go to do it. Well, when you go to do a year's worth of clips, you're like, ugh. Plus you don't remember what you did 2 weeks ago, let alone what you did in January. And so, if you're going to do anything like that, you want to do it in, it's like when I had a cat. I hated cleaning the litter box, but if I did it every day, just a little here and a little there, not a big deal. But if I let it go a couple of days, then it was a job. And so if that's something you're going to do, definitely do it in spurts. Justin has a question from Twitter. Thank you, Justin. Not sure if you got my last message, but how do podcasters know in the early stages whether slow growth is because of needing more time and consistency to get better traction, or whether it's because the show needs tweaking? How do you know? You ask your audience. There's only one way to find out, right? Because you're like, if we look at that, is it greater traction because the show needs tweaking? How do you know if the show needs tweaking? So I always like to take things about podcasting and move it out of podcasting. So if I was a baker and I said, here, eat my cupcake, and somebody ate it and they said, this would be a lot better if it had icing on it. And you're like, oh yeah, because it's just a cake right now. So you put some icing on it and they're like, oh, ooh, that icing's a little too sweet. And then you go, here, try this icing. And they go, ooh, that's perfect. That's how you know. So if you, I always go back to Jack from the Darknet Diaries. Jack, before he launched, he took people and said, listen to this episode. And then he said, did you make it all the way through? And if not, why did you stop? Because maybe you stopped, not because it was bad, but because, hey, I'm at the dentist, that type of thing. And then he asked them on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to share this with a friend? And if he got a 7 or less, he kind of went back to the drawing board. And so he figured out, okay, this is now resonating with my audience. And once he got that, then somewhere in his show, he would slowly and specifically and confidently ask them to share the show. Now, that's not a 10,000 download switch, but he knew they should want to share the show because he knew it was good. Now, in my travels, including, some of my shows, I'm not sure we want to hear feedback. Like I just started off the show with a couple minutes of advertising. If I was coaching myself, I'd be like, that's not a great way to start the show. But I do that because I'm then going to do a half hour to 40 minutes without any commercials. So if you look at the percentage of content to ads on this show, it's very small. But the fact that I do them at the very first 2 minutes is not great placement. And so I realized that not every podcaster is open to feedback, or they just go, this is the way we do it. I'm like, okay, So, but that's it. Ask your audience. The key, if you haven't read it yet, where is the book? Oh my goodness. I know it's right in front of me somewhere, but the book by Tom Webster, The Audience is Listening, is a must read. And by that, I mean, you should read it, but here it is. I knew I had it. The Audience is Listening by Tom Webster. Great book. I still think he should have called it Your Baby is Ugly, because there are, a lot of people, the title of the show or the title of the episode is How to Make $1 Million Turning Dog Poop into Gold. Thank you, Steve Martin. And, you start off talking about whatever, and you're like, no, get to the topic. It says right above this is the thing. And, you're talking about your cat and the fact that you had to get a new carburetor for your car or whatever, so, and Dan says the key word there is audience and not making change. Oh, boy, I salute you, Dan. In fact, I will put your logo on the screen one more time just for that. He says, it's not a single person. We've talked about this story on this show. We had a guy give us like 2.5 pages of notes, and they were great notes. And I mean, he was like, hey, on, episode, 137 from February 26th, at the 37-minute mark, you guys did this. Like, he really went back and listened, but there was only one problem. It's called Ask the Podcast Coach. It's a way for me to do free podcast consulting. It's a way for me to connect live with my audience. And he wanted me to do interviews. And like, doing interviews is tough enough. I don't want to do it live. And then he basically wanted a completely different show than this one. So I appreciated his feedback. It was like, this is great feedback, except this is not my show. So again, if it's something I can do and something that more than one person wants, absolutely. And then you get into weird situations where, speaking of cats and litter boxes, when I had one, 50% of my audience loved when my cat would interrupt my show, and 50% absolutely hated the fact that my cat would interrupt my show. And so, Chris from Podtastic Audio and his new car show, type in the name of your show, Chris. I'll throw that in here. I heard on Buzzsprout that they were saying that SEO isn't worth as much as a lot of podcast gurus preach. I'm not buying that yet because we don't know what AI is doing to get their answers. And my guess is they're using search. And search is based on what? Oh, yeah, that's right, SEO. So I'm not buying that yet. It may, in fact, I am right now kind of doubling down on SEO a little more than I used to. So that's, Randy says Bernie the cat should be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. We'll see, I guess. But anything I can do to boost SEO, why not? If I can add some alt text to my images, why not? If I can, find some keywords that in theory, I mean, I know mom said don't go play in traffic, and that was good when you're, 8 years old. But if I can't, why did I do an episode about Ozzy Osbourne? Well, number one, I wanted to talk about Ozzy Osbourne, and part of him dying was blowing up my childhood, and I didn't feel like talking about podcasting, so I talked about Ozzy Osbourne. But I would be lying if I said I didn't do that partially because I knew people were talking about Ozzy, give people what they want. And so he was popular at the moment, and I was like, well, that's kind of a win-win. I'm not really in the mood to talk podcasting, and this will maybe get me some better SEO. We'll see. And I've had people say that was a really cool episode because it wasn't your typical way of talking about podcasting. So, yeah. Tim says, Dave once called my baby ugly, and I'm grateful because my friends wouldn't. I have had many people that I have said, and it's not that I rip people to shreds. I'm just like, hey, this is confusing. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking out loud. And, and then in the end they go, well, my friend said it was great. And I'm like, well, okay. Again, not everything. Sometimes I'm not your target audience. I always tell people that, so keep that in mind. There are times when Ray is here from AroundTheLayout.com, a model train show. Well, when Ray gets into talking about, companies and brands and different types of I have no idea what he's talking about. And I kind of look at that and go, that's good because in one hand, yes, that's jargon, but when you're in that bubble, that's not jargon. So that's kind of when I go, ooh, you're talking in a way that only people that really love this stuff are going to get it. Ralph has a question here. Ask your audience, but what if they don't even respond to the survey? Well, that's going to happen from time to time. Do we assume that if the downloads aren't growing, it's working? Wait, let me reread that. Do we assume that if the downloads are growing, it's working? In theory, right? If I'm dumping water into a bucket and I can see it going up the bucket and the bucket is getting fuller, I'm assuming the bucket's working. But if I'm dumping water into a bucket and I see a bunch of water coming out the back of it and the water is not rising, then there's something wrong with the bucket. So, yeah, if they don't respond, then what you want to do, and it's not always gifts and things like that, but you want to who doesn't want to benefit? I would love to benefit. What's the benefit? I don't know, but if you tell me I'm going to benefit, I'm up for it. And so if you can explain to them that, hey, I'm doing this for you, Mr. or Mrs. List, I'm doing this for you, and I want to make the best podcast for you, and I can only do that. There's only one way to do that, and that is I need your feedback. And I realize that you're thinking, oh, well, I'll do that later, and somebody else will send him some feedback. No, I need your feedback because I'm doing this show for you. And if you get nothing there, then you're just like, well, okay. Then you don't want to scold them, but you can say, well, I asked for feedback and I didn't get any. So today I'm going to do this based on my feedback. Now, if you don't like this show or if you didn't like this topic, hey, let me know and I will do less or more of this. But because I've had audiences that just the only time I got feedback is when I threatened to quit. And I just said, hey, I think I'm done with this show. It was called Weekly Web Tools. And the only time I ever got, and they came out of the woodwork, no, don't quit the show. So, Ralph says, I set up a short link to buy a coffee. I use short links and see that people are visiting the link, but in 6 months, 0 people have given. Try Patreon. Nope, it's not the thing. It's not. So the idea that people do this with media hosts too. They're like, hey, I'm on Podbean and my audience isn't growing, so I'm going to switch to Buzzsprout. And that's not the problem. It's not the media host that grows the audience. And I always use the analogy, if I take a little red Corvette, because baby, you're much too fast, and you ride that on a flat runway in Texas, that thing's going to go about 225 miles an hour. Now, you take that same little red Corvette and you put it on a flat runway in Maine, that thing's going to go about 225 miles an hour. Why? Because it's not the runway, it's the car. So here, should I take my content and try to promote it with buy me a coffee, I'm going to get X amount of money. Or should I take my content and put it on Patreon? It's not the platform, it's the content. And so, because in both cases, like buy me a coffee, you can pick how many coffees you want. Now, if a coffee costs you $100, they may not donut, and I know you're not doing that, but there's that. But it's kind of disheartening because that means somebody thought about it, and because with Patreon, I mean, really, what's the difference? A coffee could be $5, and then you can buy me 1, 2, or 3 or whatever. Where with Patreon, like mine is 5, 10, and 20. And like, well, what if somebody wants to give me 3? Well, they can't. But I don't think it's the platform there. It's got to be, and this is where you've heard the whole teacher thing, right? Where tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Well, that third step, that's why I always say do the Jerry Springer at the end of an interview, right? I just got done interviewing Ralph from, AskRalph.com, and it was great. Ralph reminded us that, we need to run our podcast like a business, and, you can write off some of those expenses and blah, blah. So I don't want to redo the show because you just heard Ralph say that too. But anytime, for me, what I call the Jerry Springer is where you get to talk. Because if you do an interview, you're getting out of the way of the guests so they can just, spread all their chocolatey goodness all over your show. And then at the end, you can, Ralph brought up that point about how we should monitor our expenses. And I happened to look the other day, I use Monarch money for my my budgeting, and I'm spending close to $60 a month on McDonald's, and I had no idea. So Ralph has a great point when he says you should be tracking every expense. Okay, so I just shared a little story about me, how I used it and how Ralph just delivered value. Because sometimes you have to go, hey, that thing you just got, I don't know if you know this or not, but that's valuable. And so sometimes if somebody goes to, we just haven't quite convinced them that what they got was valuable in theory. And I'm going by the value for value thing here, because in theory, if I gave them value and I asked, that's the other thing. If I just put a buy me a coffee button there, not everybody's going to go, oh, look, it's a yellow coffee cup. They don't know what that is. You have to tell them and ask them, hey, if you find value in this, give me some of that value back, kind of things. It's tough. And again, remember that only about 3% of your audience, if you're amazing, is going to actually, go on that. Now, there are absolutely exceptions to that rule. If we go back to Ray from Around the Layout, there's a guy that lives in his community, gets information that you can't get anyplace else. So sorry, ChatGPT, you're not giving me information that you can't get anyplace else. And, he's got that community, and, Ray's way, way, way over 3% when it comes to engagement. And I'm trying to find Chris's name. Yes, the new show, Cool Cars with Chris, is Chris from Podtastic Oda. So it's a matter of when, so Randy, obviously is going to go through a period of helping the family and all that. But trust me, Randy's got other podcasts in him. He's going to come back. I think he already has like 3 or 4. Randy asked, do you think a TV show kind of an Anthony Bourdain format with a Bill Burr as a host would be a success? Visit the studio, go out to eat, discuss the show and other topics. That works with Bill Barr. I'm combining people's names. Bill Maher, and not even Bill Maher. How about Bill Burr? There we go. 3rd time's the charm. Chris Nessie, in case you're wondering, Jim hurt his back. So we're gymless today. But here's the thing. I can look at this and go, a TV show, kind of a Anthony Bourdain format where we go out and, go out to eat and discuss others, and Bill Burr. The question is that a good format? It is a format, but there's a lot of things that work there. If you only have, like right now, we got a single host. I don't know. I can't see. I don't know how many people are watching right now. But, wait a minute. If I look at my thingamabob, 30 people, according to my Stream Deck. So right now I am holding 30 people's attention. That's the thing. Can I hold your attention? And that's hard to do. Later I'll be singing and dancing, and, I'll do my Britney Spears routine, all those fun things that we do. So I've never tried Like I've got some beef sticks. That's like my new thing. Like beef sticks as a snack versus like potato chips or something like that because I'm just going for the protein. And I've never put tartar sauce on a beef stick. Only one way to find out if it's good, and that's to do it. So there is no rule when it comes to, hey, I've got an idea for a podcast. Do you think this will go viral? I have because there are things that go viral that I go, wait, what? And then I have other things that I'm like, this should be amazing. Everyone's going to love that. And it's just, it just doesn't work. So only one way to find out. And the key to that, Randy, is do you love that topic? Whatever you're talking about, wherever you're going to go eat. Comedians in cars getting coffee with Jerry Seinfeld worked because he was talking to Eddie Money. Eddie Money. Eddie Murphy. And he was talking to Kramer, and he was talking to, comedians in cars. And in general, they were being funny. Most of the comedian shows, the Mark Marons, I need to listen to Bill Burr because I know a lot of people love that. So, that's always, those get views. And actually, it doesn't make them good. It gives me, I clicked once on that because, oh, wow, Jerry Seinfeld's talking to Eddie Murphy. Click. Great. Now, was it good? Okay, it was pretty funny because it's Eddie Murphy saying he might come back to comedy, which for the record, he never did. But I wish he would. And so, but I've listened to other celebrity shows, like Larry King had a show where he just argued with his wife. And I'm like, yeah, if I wanted that, I would have stayed married. It was just one of those things that like, yeah, okay, you're a celebrity. But besides Larry going, all right, Poughkeepsie, you're on with, Randy Statlin from the Statlin Brothers. How long can you hold my attention? How long should my show be? How long can you hold my attention? That's really it in a nutshell. We're talking LLC sole proprietorship, which is the best for the podcast. Now, what Ralph told me, because he says it depends to discuss this more, go to askralph.com. He'll be happy to do that. LLC is not, and Ralph, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not as ironclad. Doesn't mean there's a gaping hole. It's not as ironclad as a sole, the sole proprietorship when it comes to getting sued. But Dan has a great point. He says, again, anything can be popular with enough money marketing behind it. Yeah, but if it's not good, good content, people will watch once and be done. That's key. It depends on how you define that success. Yeah. I mean, I remember Amy Schumer, and I like Amy Schumer. She's pretty funny. But unfortunately, she was 9 months pregnant or 8 months pregnant when she did her show. She did it in a glass patio, which was horrendous for the audio, and sounded like she did zero prep. Well, it turns out she did zero prep. Why? Because she was 8 months pregnant. And that show was horrendous in my book because it was like Amy and Friends or something like that. So I've heard Kathy Lee Gifford was another one that's like, I'm Kathy Lee Gifford. You will like my show because I'm, Mayim Blalik on, she's Amy on The Big Bang Theory, and she was Blossom for those of you that remember. I can't listen to her show because every time you get something good, it's like, and I found the best recipe for apple pie. It's great. Here it is. Wait, there's a commercial. And then it's like, what? And then anytime I see somebody bring in their old co-hosts, I'm like, oh, ratings must not be that good. Yeah. So Daniel says it's not as ironclad as a corporate regarding getting sued. Yeah. Thank you. You said sole proprietor. Thank you, Daniel, for getting me straight there. Yeah. And then Ralph says LLC is better than sole proprietorship. Depends on the plans for taxes. Yeah, well, askthepodcastcoach.com/question. We'll get you into the show. It's a lot of fun. And I did find out that whichever one I went with is more paperwork than an LLC. And if I had to do it again, because, who doesn't love paperwork? But it is what it is. So, While we're playing around here, I did want to talk about a thing that came up on Reddit, and this is really not new. This guy says, "Hello, everyone, and I wanted to share my experience to help others avoid what happened to me." I like this guy because he took responsibility for his actions. He says, "I ran my podcast for over 6 years with 168 episodes. In one episode, I played a few music tracks I had created using Sonos, so not illegal or copyrighted content." He says, "That was against Spotify's terms of service. My mistake. I should have checked more clearly." So yeah, it's not just illegal music. It's any music. They don't want any music on your podcast in Spotify. He said, "The fun thing was, instead of just removing that episode, they deleted my entire podcast." Yeah, 168 episodes. See you bye. No warning, no strike, no way to recover the feed. Support is almost non-existent. My last email was completely ignored. So what he took away from this, big platforms can remove your content without warning. You give them almost full usage rights when you upload. They can remove it, change it, or ignore you completely. And again, with Spotify, well, you could not pay them anymore. Support is minimal. Yep, you get what you pay for. Mostly automated replies, no real conversation. Always back up your episodes, including show notes, and be ready to move if needed. Yep, I have mine's in Backblaze. I have all my old episodes in Backblaze because it's dirt cheap. After a takedown, you can't access your podcast at all anymore, even though you're the one who created it. Yeah, you don't own it because you paid nothing for it. You get nothing. Good day, sir. I haven't given up. I'm now self-hosted. Oh, that's a bad idea. My podcast with a new feed. Why he said, there we go. Why is it a bad idea to self-host? Because, and I know you can go, but I'm on HostGator. Unlimited bandwidth, unlimited storage. And that sounds great. It's not the bandwidth. It's not the storage. It's the, that thing. Resources I'll use. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically a website is made up of text and images. So we're talking kilobytes of information. A podcast is made up of, MP3 files, which are megabytes. And so there's a big difference between serving a website page that's, 13 kilobytes versus a single MP3 file that's 50 megabytes. And now 300 people try to grab that MP3 file at the same time. And the poor little web host is going, and it can't keep up. And so they go, "Hey, you're kind of like killing our servers over here. You either need to move or get yourself a real media host." So when he says I moved to self-hosting, that's not a good idea. See Buzzsprout, see Captivate, see Transistor, see Blueberry, see anybody but Spotify. If you need free, Red Circle, but come on now, hobbies cost money. So, it's always, no music at all. Rich says it is pretty stupid, but it's what you call it. It's Spotify. They're not known for being smart, unless it's, how to, scam musicians out of money and all that fun stuff. So, coming in to help us understand all this stuff about LLCs and that whole nine yards, the one and only Ralph Estep Jr., even though it says Jim Cullison. Welcome to being Jim Cullison, Ralph, from AskRalph.com.
All good, my friend. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, so tell us, LLC, Sole Corp, all that, we're in your wheelhouse, my friend, of accounting, so fire away.
I'll back up a step first. So let's start here. So if your concern is protecting personal liability, then you definitely want to be in something besides a sole proprietorship. Because if you're in a sole proprietorship, there is no separation between you and the business. So if someone was to sue you, you're going to get sued personally. So that's first step. So most people are going to say, yes, it's good to be in something. Now, Daniel J. Lewis mentioned something about you have to have at least $120,000 in revenue before a corporation makes sense. I'm going to disagree with that. Here's the deal. If you are a sole proprietor, then all of your income and I'm talking about net income minus your expenses. So you made this much on Patreon, you made this much on Buy Me a Coffee, whatever those things are. You made a certain amount of money. Well, if you're a sole proprietor, you're going to pay not only federal and state tax, but you're going to pay something called self-employment tax. That's an extra 15.2%. That's a big number. So one of the benefits to go into a corporation or an LLC is to try to mitigate some of that self-employment tax. Well, so that's why I said it depends. So if you are in a position, let's say you're married, husband and wife, one of the things we could do is we could create a 2-member LLC. And not to get everybody lost in the weeds, but by creating a 2-member LLC, the game we're trying to play, and it's totally legal, totally appropriate, is to divide the income into 2 pieces. And basically, so let's just say you're married, Dave. I know you're not, but let's just say you were. So you're married, husband and wife, you assign each of you 50% ownership in the business. Well, Dave is the only one that actually does stuff in the podcast. So we make Dave the active owner. Well, on Dave's income, the self-employment tax happens. Can't get around that. But on Dave's wife's, it doesn't. So I just sheltered half of that income from self-employment tax. Now, Daniel J said, okay, but how much money do you have to make? The break even for this to break even cost-wise is about $8,000 a year in net income. Now, if you're not married, then we go in to talk about corporations. And specifically what I put people in is what's called a subchapter S corporation. And what I do there is if you're not married, you don't have that other person you can bring into the mix. Then I put you in a subchapter S corporation and I pay you a salary from that. Why do I pay a salary? Because on that salary, you're going to pay Social Security and Medicare tax. But here's the beauty of it. On the income that's not from salary, no Social Security and Medicare tax. So let me use a simple example. Let's say that your content is making you a net profit of $100,000 a year. Big number, but let's just say it's doing that, okay? If we do nothing, it's going to cost you an extra $16,000 a year in tax. That's that 15.8%. I'm rounding up, but for sake of math on the audio, rounding up. But if we do that S corporation, we pay you, let's say, a half of that as a salary. I just saved you $8,000. So not only have I saved you money, I've also given you that liability shield. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to give you legal advice. But any other thing I think it brings to the table, and Dave, you and I have had this very conversation, it brings to that more stability. It's a corporation. It's an LLC. I just think it brings you like sort of street cred is probably the best word to use. But it also, honestly, I think it also insulates you from IRS audits a little bit. Because if you're doing it as a sole proprietorship, there's very little difference between you and the business. So these expenses, like you go to the grocery store, well, I had to buy stuff for the podcast, or I went to Staples, or I went on Amazon. If you have a separate business account, you're doing everything separate. I love that in an audit. I deal with audits all the time. I can say to the IRS, no. Dave Jackson has a business account and Dave Jackson has a personal account, and never the twain shall meet. And the auditor goes, oh, you got me there.
That's it. There you go. Excellent. And where can people find more fun-filled advice from you, Mr. Ralph?
So you can get advice from me at askralph.com. But if I can plug this real quick, starting October 7th, I'm going to be doing a live show. It's going to be Grit and Growth Business Live, and you can get to it by going to gritandgrowthbusiness.com/live. It's going to be at 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights Eastern time. You can come there, ask questions just like this. I'm going to be out there. If you want to do some business talking, business coaching, I'm going to put myself out there absolutely free. Be happy to talk to anybody, sort of just like Ask the Podcast Coach.
Only better. There you go.
Oh, no, it's not going to be better, my friend. I don't have the street cred that you have, dude.
You do in the accounting world, that's for sure, in business.
Well, I have been doing this from 30 years. It's funny. I was doing an interview I did a comedy show. Dave knows this. I did a comedy show the other day. Talk about stepping outside of your element, right? So I did this comedy show, and the guy's like, well, you're a pretty boring guy if you're an accountant. I said, dude, I've been doing this since I was 8 years old. He's like, you got to tell us that story.
Yeah.
But literally been doing it since I was 8 because I grew up in it. So if anybody hasn't seen something, I've seen it because I've been doing it for such a long time.
Wow. Excellent. All right. AskRalph.com. And when you said October, what date is it?
October 7th, first Tuesday in October. It'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Again, that's gritandgrowthbusiness.com/live. I'll be using eCam just like you're using, Dave, but you can come on. You can do live just like we're doing here. You can put questions in the chat. Be happy to answer any of those business questions because a lot of people don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Sometimes we just don't know what to ask.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
I'm here to help because I want to see people be successful. That's my passion.
There you go. Excellent. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for jumping in.
You're welcome, David. You're doing a great job, by the way.
I'm doing better at this than I also knew I had like an hour and 15 minutes. He texted me. He's like, dude, I really shouldn't be moving. And I'm like, all right, I'll figure it out. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm just going to have a ton of questions and breathing helps as well. I've
breathing is good. You could take a little step back in pace. You are moving at a quicker pace today, I've noticed.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, it's
just
that.
Take a deep breath, Dave. We all love you, man. We love you, Dave. It's all good. We love you, Dave. You're the man. It's all good, buddy.
I appreciate that, man. All right, take care.
Yep, take care, buddy. Bye.
There you go. The one and only Ralph. Amazing guy. Let's do this just because it's a good, fun spot to do this. Let's talk about my awesome supporters. I do appreciate every single one of you because we've got a few people. We did lose a few people, but that happens. And so thanks to everyone that is, LionDen.com, HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Well, that's that Jim Cullison guy. I Am Salt Lake, Indie Drop-In, Spybrary, all those. Yep, podcast. Thank you so much. And this show is brought to you by, should I put on crappy radio voice? This show is brought to you by theschoolofpodcasting.com, where you get courses, coaching, and community. Use the coupon code COACH, and that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you're like, I don't need to start a podcast, I've already got one. Well, we talked about it today. How do I know if my show is resonating? Well, you might try sitting in the podcast hot seat. For the record, it's really not that hot. But I go over an episode that you pick, and then I go over your website, make sure you're not missing any of those low-hanging fruit, and check it out at podcasthotseat.com. And if you're at askthepodcastcoach.com or askralph.com, well, that's Podpage, and you can try Podpage by going to trypodpage.com. If you want to learn Podpage, well, then check out learnpodpage.com. And if you're like, no Jim Cullison today. Well, you can get as much Jim Cullison as you want by going over to theaverageguy.tv and check out his show, Home Gadget Geeks. And Jim, our thoughts are with you today because I know I just hate sleeping wrong and you wake up and you can't move. Like, I can't look left for the next 2 days. That's always fun. And it's time for the Wheel o' Names, which as much prep as I did this morning, I did not get ready for the Wheel of Names. There we go. And let's share our screen. And there it is. So who will it be? Will it be Greg over at Indie Drop-In, or Craig at AI Goes to College, or Glenn or Jody? Well, we're going to spin it and see what happens. And the survey says it's going to be my buddy Shane from spybrary.com. If you like, if you like James Bond, okay, that's cool. But we're talking like real spies doing real spy stuff. He's even been on, I want to say BBC 1 or 2. He's been on like a big shot Smarty Pants news channel because they were talking about spies. And they're like, well, we need a spy expert. And lo and behold, Shane Whaley came up when they searched for that. So congrats on that. And that's not the right button, but this is the one we want to go to. And as always, if you found the show, maybe that we saved you some time or saved you some money, maybe we saved you a headache, maybe we kept you educated, maybe we even entertained you and made you smile, well, you can be an awesome supporter. Don't have to spend the $20 to get on the Wheel of Names. If you want to go $5 or $10, $10 will get you on the website, askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And thanks again to all of the awesome supporters. I do deeply appreciate that, as does my, car payment and things of that nature that always come in handy. Let's take, we talked about Spotify and how they kicked that port. Well, they just deleted a show. Let's go. I'll take Spotify for 200, Alex. And this one came up and it said, I had a podcast and we're so close to hitting all the criteria to join the Spotify partner program, which is particularly difficult. 9,500 consumption hours or over 30 days, which means you got to have a pretty popular channel. Then my country got removed. Yeah, from the eligible countries. The fact that I divide my time between 2 countries doesn't help, but still we worked so hard on uploading material, interviews, way more frequently than usual to hit the target, and then nada. Spotify partner program removed from our monetization options. Simple as that. So bloody frustrating. Starting to wonder if Spotify is the right platform. It's not. Yeah, for a podcast. If you want to be seen, there's a thing called YouTube that you might want to look into. Now realize you're not going to make heaps of cash on YouTube. I think now that I'm not having birthdays and things like that, I think I'm back to making like $5 per 1,000 downloads, something like that. And so, so just, yeah. Somebody asked what platform am I using? Chris Nessie is chiming in. I'm using Ecamm. I did use Riverside for a presentation I did on for Podpage, and it worked. The fun part was the chat. My chat was completely empty. And as you know, when you do a live show, it's live. And so I'm trying to talk into the camera and do this while over on this computer, I'm like, where's the chat room? And so I went over to the Podpage YouTube channel and I saw that I was live and I'm like, okay, it's live, it's streaming. And I had a chat room on YouTube, but I'm going to blame that on operator error, that somehow the comments were not coming back into Riverside. But other than that, I'm batting 25% with Riverside. I've had my very first time I used it, it kicked out my guest about the 1.5 minute mark. The second time I used it, I had a horrendous echo, and then I had the webinar, and that went fine. So I'm batting 30% then. So, and just realize whoever you use, the only time I have problems with Ecamm, it's not usually Ecamm, it's the Ecamm talking to the Stream Deck thing that makes things kind of icky. So just a reminder, if you have a question, you can go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/question. And if you don't want to come on screen, there's a way you can join via audio as well. So I realized, like, David, Saturday, I even had I barely had my coffee. I haven't had a shower yet. I do not want to be on camera. Well, then don't. Just do the audio thing. Here's another fun one that I just titled, Yeah, No. And that is starting my first episode of a podcast tomorrow. Tomorrow, me and my co-host will be starting our first podcast episode, looking for some good stories to talk about on our podcast. I think I did this one before now that I read that. If you're running out of ideas and you haven't launched yet, no. That's, I always love people that think the day we record is the day I'm going to be an Apple, and that's not correct either. It takes a while to get it. Well, first of all, the first thing you record, I typically call a rough draft, and then do it a second time, maybe a third, get some feedback on it, and then launch. And so, yeah. Ralph wants to know, why are you not using the Ecamm interview platform instead of Zoom? Is it the delay? I'm going to be having a sidekick for my show, and we did see a bit of delay. I didn't see any delay with Zoom. The thing I'm doing that for, we had a couple people when I was using the interview link, and one of them was Randy, and we know Randy knows his stuff, and Randy had somehow, and this might be a Dave issue, but I remember right now I don't have the interview up. I have the Zoom window, but I was always kind of had, out of the corner of my eye, I was watching the interview box, but Randy had said he connected and it was waiting for me to let him in, and I got nothing. And then I had other people that would join and their microphone, like, it wouldn't use, like, I'm talking to podcasters. So they had the stuff set right. So we just hit a few hurdles using the Ecamm thing, and everybody and their brother knows Zoom. So I just was like, when they said they have the Zoom integration, and I have found out that if people join the Zoom, I found out last week, and I've just noticed that I start the Zoom call at the beginning of this, then we go 90 minutes, and I'm not sure when, but I've just noticed over the last couple episodes, I will go over and look at the Zoom window, and it's gone. And I'm like, is this a case where if nobody's in the Zoom meeting, it just kind of closes itself down? I'm not really sure. So that's why I'm using Zoom, just because everybody and their brother. I mean, I used to use Google Meet for Podpage, pretty similar products, and I'd be like, okay, now share your screen and I'll show you. And getting people to share the screen on Google Meet was at times like pulling teeth. And I'm like, hey, can we just splurge the $15 for Zoom? Because everybody knows Zoom. And so that's why we're using Zoom. Rich says the Zoom is super easy. Yep. Everyone knows how to use it. The interview mode looks blurry to the user and it will throw off a guest. Plus it gets cumbersome for them. Yeah, I don't quite get it because there are times when I'll be like, click the share button at the bottom. Or I would say on a Google Meet, I forget what the icon was. And it'd be like, and there are times some people are new, anytime you do anything for the first time, it's typically not smooth. And I just said, can we please spend the $15 on Zoom? So, and then Chris says, practice makes perfect, and then practice some more. Yeah, so I last night, I always go in and make sure, I try to, that Ecamm and everything is going to play nice together. I usually reboot my computer before I start and then pray that nothing changed. There's nothing more fun than, when you everything's working great and then you reboot and you break everything. You're like, oh, great, probably shouldn't have rebooted. But then there are other times that if I don't reboot, nothing works. So if you are running out of time for your podcast, I saw this in Reddit. It says, one of my biggest pain points with podcasting was recording an episode every week. It sounds like a lot, but I want to spend less days per month recording due to my full schedule. One of the best decisions I made was recording 2 episodes at a time. Instead of recording 1 episode each week, I have recorded 2 episodes at once every other week and then schedule them to release in advance. I'm doing that this weekend. I will be at the Empowered Podcasting Conference next weekend, so I'm recording this week's episode and I'm recording next week's episode because I'm not going to be here. Or I get back late Sunday night and don't feel like staying up till 4 a.m. to record Monday's show. He says, is this some huge genius secret of a strategy? Not really. Absolutely not, but it was a small change that allowed me to continue podcasting and stay motivated. Sometimes a small change can make a huge difference, and it keeps you on the right track. This may not work for your show if it's an in-person or an interview type of podcast, but if it's something that might work for your show, I 100% recommend it. This can also be used to double the amount of episodes you release each month without changing the amount of days you record. Yeah, Jody does this a lot. Jody Kringle from the Audio Branding Podcast. And I know Courtney Elmer does this for her show where you'll get on with her or to do an interview. And then she does this in advance. And about halfway through the interview, when you've talked about, topic A, and she'll go, all right, thanks, Dave, for coming on the show. And you're like, thanks for having me. This is great. And then she will say, it's the same recording. She'll be like, hey, Dave, thanks so much for coming back. And you'd be like, thanks for having me. And then you go into topic 2. It's the same interview, but she plans to split it into 2. So you did 1 interview and you get 2 episodes out of it. So it just takes a little planning ahead of time. So and then Chris Nessie says, yep, in the end, do what works for you. Yeah, I always say, look at your, record, track your time, whether it's while you're doing research, while you're actually recording it, while you're doing the editing, while you're doing the post-production, while you're doing the show notes, all that stuff, record it your time, and then look at how much time did it take you and ask you, hey, that took me, 12 hours to do a 45-minute podcast. Do I have 12 hours a week to do a podcast? And you go, no. Well, again, then guess what? You're not doing a weekly show, or you need to do a shorter show or something like that. So keep that in mind. It's always fun when especially when you first do it, it's always going to take longer. So, but there are all sorts of things you can do I always say, for those of us that remember seesaws, which is sad that there's a large chunk of the population, I would think like, what is a seesaw? But it was this little board and you would sit on it, and when one end went down, the other one went up. And I always say podcasting is a little bit like a seesaw, because the more planning you do, the less editing you do. The less planning you do, the more editing you end up doing. So That's always fun to, that's why I've never been a fan of winging it. I have an interview now in the can that we had scheduled so far in advance that when it came time to do the interview, I forgot who was interviewing who. I had not done my prep. So we did a quick kind of pre-interview call on the interview. And then I'm like, okay, let's start this. And just because I kind of didn't know where I was going, that's a lot of times when you hear the person's like, tell us a little bit about yourself. What they're really saying is, I didn't do any homework and I need to know where I'm going. And so there was a bit of that. Now, the fun part is then, right? No, less planning, more editing. So that's one of those things that it was an interesting exercise. And what I ended up with was not what I thought I was going to get, but it was one of those where I'm like, yeah, this is where planning comes in a lot. So here's another fun one. So I've been working on a new podcast, and I was working on drawing some branding assets for said podcast when OPE, I don't know what OPE sounds. OPE, yeah, you know me. I don't know what that is. Other people's ears? I don't know. But my nearly 10-year-old iPad bit the dust, like straight up decided life was no longer worth living. It had seen too much of my abuse and sent itself into oblivion. And along with it went my new logo, the YouTube channel banner, talk sprites for the video version of the podcast. Makes sense since I'll be talking about a lot of art topics, and about 10 years worth of artwork because I'm an idiot. And I only backed up some specific pieces because I didn't realize that auto backup for the specific software I was using was a premium feature. The cost of repair for my old iPad was more than buying a refurbed newer model, but I was really happy with the way things were looking, and I was so excited to share my new podcast with my teeny tiny but full of incredible people audience. Yeah, I cannot stress enough, backup, backup, backup. And so I use Backblaze for that, and it backs up my entire hard drive. It backs up an entire 2 terabyte external hard drive. And so if things go kablooey, then, you're not so messed up of going, oh, wait, my logo. Yeah, that's a bad thing. I think I can do this. I don't want to do that. I have a fun tool that I can share my phone with. Yeah, I know. Chris says so many nerdy topics this morning, and there's no Jim. So keep that in mind. And Randy, are you coming back, or are you just still there? We'll find out here in a second. But let me, and we will put him here. That makes sense because Randy's a big IT nerd as well. So here, hold on. You can, we'll even give you the fun field, even though he's not here.
Wait, what?
What?
I was going to share a tip with you. I discovered.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. I was going to do.
But I'll rant. Tell me what to rant on, and I will rant.
No, I don't.
will go for it.
I'm looking for this, even though you're not Jim.
And now,
Randy.
He's been waiting for this. It's time for Jim to get his nerd on.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
My preferred term is geek.
Geek. That's right. I'm sorry.
So, I discovered that ChatGPT has this really great ability to take an unprocessed piece of audio. Okay. And if you tell it what microphone you're using and what device you're recording to, for instance, Rodecaster Pro 2, Rodecaster Duo, Rode PodMic, it will analyze the audio and will then give you settings appropriate for your voice for your purpose.
Interesting.
So and I've done this like recently and hadn't thought about it. And as I'm working here, listening to the show, watching the show and everything, I came across my printout of the microphone settings for myself and Jim, and reminded me, oh, I should share this. So it will break it down for you for the high pass filter settings, the de-esser settings, every single component in there, the noise gate settings, the compressor, the EQ. It will even, after you set everything, you can do another recording, stick it back in, have it analyze it, And the Rodecaster devices are notoriously low in volume.
Yeah.
In LUFS. They're notoriously low. Like my master compeller is set as high as possible, and the highest LUF level I can get is -22.
Yeah.
And -19 is what you should be at for mono, -16 for stereo. And it will even tell you that, oh, you're low. Can you go higher? No. Well, you need to use another tool, and then it'll recommend another tool.
Nice.
So it recommends use Auphonic is the big one, and I love Auphonic.
Yeah.
So just something, if anybody's using a Rodecaster device, you can even do it like if you're using just the Rode PodMic USB, the settings that are available in Rode Central for that, it's the same. It's almost the same settings, and it will walk you through that process and give them to you. It is amazing. I simply took I turned all the processing off, recorded my voice just natural, added that file to my prompt, and let me pull my prompt up and I'll tell you exactly how I prompted it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is the prompt? Because that's what Chris wanted to know.
The prompt I used was, and this is when I did the two voices because I had two separate recordings, was, I think I got it. Let's go all the way to the top to my original prompt because this is a combined prompt here. I have a Rode PodMic USB. This is when I did it with just the PodMic USB. And I want to tweak the settings to make my voice sound as good as possible. I have a sample recording with no processing turned on. Can you use that to make some recommendations for processing settings for me? And then it lays out there, when you send me the file, and this is what it says it will do. Check the raw tone of your voice. So it's looking at low tone, low balance, mid, highs, everything with that. Look at the noise levels and the room sound. That's nice. Recommend EQ bands. So where to cut, where to boost. Suggest compression ratios, thresholds, attack and release to fit with your voice delivery. Provide guidance on limiting and overall loudness. And if needed, give you tips for mic technique and room treatment. That was a nice one there at the end.
That's interesting.
So, and it even gave me out the waveform and the frequency spectrum, showed me those forms so that I could see where my voice was naturally, and then started giving me the details on how to adjust the settings to get my voice sounding as good as it could. And I think my voice sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
but like I said, I just told it what microphone, what device or interface I'm using, and it walked right through the process. And there's a couple little things like it gave me something. I think it was on the noise gate with the Rodecaster, you have a setting for hysterious. Still not really sure what that is.
Sounds like it sounds like a song or an album by
or even an awesome band name.
Yeah, exactly.
It gave me like a number for that. And I said, well, it's expressed as percentage on the settings, and it went, oh, easy to adjust, and adjusted it to the percentage.
Huh.
Just a tip for anybody out there who wants to try to get the best they can out of whatever they're using to record. I'm sure that if there's processing settings similar on, and I haven't used the Zoom products for the pod tracks. I haven't used the Tascam, whatever Tascams is called. I'm sure there's similar stuff.
Yeah. And
it may even be something you can use to tweak your settings for EQ and different stuff in Audacity and all the other ones.
That's what Chris says. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It worked really well. Somebody else had suggested it in a Facebook group, and I was like, I don't know about this. So I jumped on it one day, and I am extremely happy. Like I'm in a room with multiple monitors in front of me, so sound is bouncing back at me.
Yeah.
It's bouncing off the wall behind me. There's a little fan setting next to me that now nobody hears.
Yeah. So you're saying you actually took the settings and put it in, and it worked.
I put it all in on my Rodecaster, and the last thing I have to do, like my voice sounds good. Everything comes in pretty crisp and clear. The last thing I do is I send it to Auphonic and process, and it gets my level up. And if there is any noise in the background, it gets rid of pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
So I've got a sweet setup, but ChatGPT is what helped me get to that point. Just a tip for anybody.
Yeah. Something to try, right?
Potentially look at it.
Sometimes you're not sure where to start. And you're like, all right, well, let's go with this. Yeah. Cause we have some skeptics. Daniel's like, I'm not really sure, of its capability to analyze audio, but give it a shot. And it's like everything else. I know when I do demos of Podpage, I'm like, there comes a part where you go, better this way, better that way, better this way, like, and pick one. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So if you
and the settings I had gone through and worked on and tried to get dialed in on my own, this is so much better.
Yeah.
It sounds so much better than it did. And I didn't think it sounded bad, but this has cleaned it up a lot and made it more fit with where I want my voice to be and my sound to be.
Very cool. Excellent. All right, man. Well, thanks for the tip. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a good day, man.
Yeah, we'll see you. Yeah, the thing I want to share here, and I think this will work. If I do this, yes, you guys can see. It is a tool. So I'm talking about this thing. I'm mirroring my iPhone on the screen here. And the name of it is, I was hoping, how about, well, here, let's go to the support page. That will help me figure out. Edit Point is the name of the software. And now I got to go find it again. But if you're a person that does, since we're talking about feedback, it's kind of wonky, but basically if you're using Apple's cloud-based iCloud, right? You upload a file in iCloud and then you can go in and say, hey, give me a show from such and such and get the file that way. That's the only thing I was like, that's kind of clunky. And then you listen to it and you can basically say, hey, I want to enter a note at this point. And then when you're done, you can basically say, hey, I want to export these markers. And then I said as text. And then basically I said, copy it. And then I threw it into a note. And so if you're a person who is giving feedback on stuff, this is a handy, it's like $15 a year. I think it wasn't, expensive in my opinion, if it's going to save you time. The only thing I thought was wonky, and I kind of wondered being an iOS, I don't know if it's on Android or not, but for giving feedback and a way to listen, I like Pocket Cast because I can mark bookmarks. But in terms of actually writing a note, which I guess I could have a really long name for a bookmark, but that's a handy little tool that I just found out about from, it's the show from, what do you call it, with Colin Gray and Matthew. I know it's the podcast host is their website, and they talked about it on one of their shows. Yeah, and then Chris Nessie brings up, hey, since we did kind of mention, if you're talking about AI and audio stuff, Mike Russell has an amazing channel where every day he's like, I did this and I typed in these 3 prompts and look, it built me a house. It's amazing. And then he says also, if you're doing legal stuff, check out Gordon Firemark. He's a good guy, as always. And then Harlow wants to know, do we have any input on who is actually listening to AI-generated podcast? Anyone meet a person that has there's the key, that's recommended one. And in my travels, no. Because my 2 episodes ago, if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/1000, we talked about what is remarkable content. And in my opinion, AI content is not remarkable. It's not bad sometimes, but it's nothing that I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to tell Daniel about this. He's going to lose his mind. I've never heard lose your mind kind of content come out of AI unless it's wrong. Like my favorite was there's a blog post on Castos's website that says podcasting has had a discoverability problem since the 90s. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did have a discoverability problem in the 90s because it didn't exist yet. And that's kind of when I went, okay, I'm not going to really trust the things on that blog anymore. Your integrity goes right out the window when you do that. I talked about this earlier, but just to repeat it, what's the best way to move from one host to the other? What is your current host or not doing that you want the new host to do? Because I know a lot of people think that like, oh, if I move from, Buzzsprout to Captivate that I'm now going to get the names and email addresses of my audience. And that would be no, nobody does that. There's a little thing called GDPR from our good friends in Europe. And the only way you can get even gender information is from Spotify. So that's where you want to do your own audience survey to get that kind of stuff. And it's not the media host that's going to make your show grow. It's your content. So so keep that in mind. Chris says, I sampled the Notebook LM audio and video tool to go over my latest YouTube video. It was okay, but not fun. I have tried that, where I will take the transcript from a show, throw it into ChatGPT and say, this is a podcast for, in my case, podcasters who are trying to do blank, yada, yada, yada. Here's the transcript. And so you paste that whole thing in, and then you go, either what's missing, how could I have made this better? And I get the artificial part. I'm not sold on the intelligence part, but it did do, I remember I did this once with The Future of Podcasting, which is a show I do with Daniel J. Lewis, and it said you guys use too much jargon. And so I looked at it, because anytime somebody gives you feedback, the first thing you want to do is go, do they have a legitimate point? And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, we do. But for our target audience, that's not jargon. That's just the way we talk. So if I had been using words that people, like most podcasters, don't know, or maybe we're more advanced podcasting and the beginner podcast wouldn't know. But that was one note that I was like, huh. And I was like, well, I get their point. But in the end, I was like, okay, I get why it said it. And I think it said that we took tangents. And I'm like, hey, Dave Jackson's one of the co-hosts. You're taking tangents. So that was another thing. So it's something you might try, because the thing that ChatGPT doesn't have, I'll give you a prime example. If you go to YouTube and type in redneck Star Trek, there is a video, and it's AI, obviously. Like, it has Spock sitting on a porch with some sweet tea, and he's got tattoos all over him, and Captain Kirk has a giant mullet. It's pretty funny. And so anytime somebody shares something with me, I go, why did they share that? So number one is pretty funny. It's something you can't see anyplace else because Leonard Nimoy is dead. So we can't have him dress up like a redneck on a front porch anymore. The song wasn't bad. It was country. So, take it for what it is. 3 chords and the truth, and then if it was nostalgic. So there were a couple things that I was like, okay, why are people sharing this? So nostalgia was one. You can't get it anyplace else. The song wasn't bad, and it made you laugh. So I was like, okay, because anytime somebody shares something with me or I share something with someone else, I'm always like, okay, why? And for me, nostalgia was a lot of that one. That was a lot of like, oh, wow, look at that, really does look like Kirk and Sulu and, Scotty and the whole crew. And so I don't think ChatGPT gets nostalgia because that's an emotion, and it doesn't have that. So I think that's where, again, anytime you can lean into stories, there you go. Ralph says, be careful there. It's more than 3 chords. I think it's 4. Yes. On the bridge, they throw in they might even throw in a 7th chord. Now, I played in a country band. There's some really good pickers in country. So keep that in mind. Harless says, thanks, Dave and Dan, for the input. I wanted to get a community gut check on that versus a company's press release. Oh, yeah. That's here's the thing. Here's what I like about it. There's that one company that's making 3,000 episodes a week. It's going to be absolute slop. And then she called us, Luddites? The CEO, people that think all AI is AI slop. And I'm like, well, AI that's, like, I don't mind AI on images. I use it occasionally for Podpage on our blog. I'll write a blog and I'm like, hey, can you make this better without losing my voice? And, I like it as a touch-up tool. I don't think I'd trust it as a, hey, write this and I'm just going to copy and paste it. You always want a human in there to, again, make sure it's not saying things like podcasting's had a discoverability problem since the 90s, because you'll lose your credibility. And I also think, again, if we look at what makes remarkable content, I've never seen anything come out of ChatGPT that I was like, wait, hold on. Oh my gosh, did you see this? Oh my, I gotta go tell everyone. You must read. I've never done that when I've gotten something out of ChatGPT. I'm like, oh, that saved me some time, and now I'm gonna make it better. I always tweak that. So, and the one I heard was on knitting. And so Google has the EEAT, which is experience. So when you I remember the one time my grandma taught me how to knit and blah, blah, blah. And I forget what the other E is. Authoritativeness, EEAT. And I forget what the T is. Just makes me hungry every time I talk about it. But there's none of that unless they start making, I did do something where I had, I call it Kyle and Sheila, the Google LM, because, they're going to do a deep dive. And it was some transcript, and I talked about how I'd lost my wallet, and somebody actually returned it to me. And Sheila said, oh, I remember the one time I lost my wallet. And I'm like, liar, Sheila, you lie. You never had a wallet. You're not a person. So eventually I think they're going to have AI start making. Remember that one time we went to the amusement park and I'm like, no, that never happened. Dan says AI is a tool. It needs humans to use it properly. Yep. Amen, brother. And just as importantly, to keep other humans to use it improperly. Yeah. So when I hear 3,000 episodes that are horrible, I'm like, on one hand, I hate the fact now for the new podcast, the person's like, I've never listened to a podcast. And then they go to Apple Podcasts and they find the show. And by the way, the one I went to listen to started off with, I think, 1.5 minutes of ads that were not targeted at all. They weren't about knitting because the show was about knitting. And then, it was Jamie Lee, Capricorn or whatever her name was. And she's all friendly and bubbly. And, so she had the presentation and she was all happy and fun and so glad you're here. And I was like, yeah, but yeah. And there's no disclosure that she was AI, which I believe you're supposed to do. I know, at least on YouTube, you have to disclose when you have somehow made your voice sound funny. Or let's see. Oh, there's reverb. So I need to do that.
But there's one. Yeah. All right, baby. Let's.
Okay. That's a little weird.
And then this that one's not quite as low. So this is when you're doing the whatever. Welcome to Here's a fun one. Oh, wait a minute. Let's do this.
Let's turn that off while we're at it. If anybody here is a Kit power user, I would love to know because I'm trying to talk myself out of doing something stupid. And so pricing for right now, I'm like closing in on 2,000. So when I look at this for Kit, let me share my screen. Because I'm on Kit. Kit is going up by $100 a year. So if I go to Kit Creator Pro, right now I'm on Creator, which is $590. If I stick there a year for $3,000, and I spent last night spending a lot of time with System.io, and if I go annual for 10,000 people, it's $470. So I'm like, wait, I could get 7,000 more subscribers, and this is where you start getting bright, shiny, and like, ooh, this one does this. So I looked, I'm like, and I spent a lot of time because it's free. They have a free tier that's actually pretty powerful. And so I looked at this and they have smart recommendations. And I cannot find it yet. I wish there was a way to identify how many people on my list came from this recommendation engine that they have in Kit. Because I do get people that join. I get that more on Substack as well. And then they have Facebook custom audiences. And you're like, ooh, well, look at that. And then it dawned on me, I'm not running Facebook ads. And I just looked at this and was like, well, I'm thinking of upgrading to this one because it had an insights dashboard and some other things that, again, at least here they're letting you know what they are. Get actionable insights about your marketing and sales performance to drive more revenue. And I'm like, okay, Well, that's $900 a year. And I'm like, versus $470. So if anybody knows how to, like, because the other thing is that I was like, wait, Dave, don't get lost in the bright, shiny new tool. And then I saw that if you buy a yearly subscription of any version, they'll move your email list for you and recreate all your automations, because that was the big negative. I'm like, oh, I don't want to create my welcome sequence. I don't want to do all my lead magnets again. And they're like, oh, we'll do that for you. And I was like, interesting. So if you're a Kit user and a Power user, I'd love to know how much, because they're getting into things like an e-commerce platform. And I'm like, I don't really need that. And if you're going to be an all-in-one thing, Kit, well, then I'll just use this other all-in-one thing and have it, basically save myself $500 a year. So Stephen is asking about Randy's little trick there. Did you use a WAV file or an MP3 when you prompted chat? I would use a WAV file if it was me. I'm not sure what Randy used, but yeah. So if anybody has, if you're a Power user of Kit, let me know. Or if you're listening to this later, there's a link at the top of the show notes that lets you send me a text message if you want to answer it that way. And of course, you can always go to askthepodcastcoach.com/voicemail and leave a message that way. Going back to the AI slop, it is slop today, but it'll get better. I think we need those disclosures. Yeah. That's what it didn't sound bad. It wasn't, if you think back to the early AI voices, they've come a long way. Even what's her name in the box from Amazon now is much more friendly and bubbly because they use that. Now she's, they're using AI and she's much more. Last night I asked her what the temperature was outside, and it was like, 1:45 in the morning. And she's like, well, it's 64 degrees outside, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, but, she made a remark kind of like, why are you asking what's the temperature outside at 1:45 in the morning? And I'm like, well, I just need to know if is it warm outside? I'll turn on a fan. If not, et cetera, et cetera. Jeff is a Kit guy. I might ask Jeff. I thought about that. And with that, I think as I look at the clock, we're going to call it a day. Thanks to everyone for chiming in and jumping in. I really appreciate that. No show next week. I will be in Charlotte, North Carolina, hanging out with Ralph from AskRalph.com, Craig from AIGoesToCollege.com, and Mark from PracticalPrepping.info, all members of the School of Podcasting. I'm looking forward to that. And anybody else that's there, you can find it at EmpoweredPodcasting.com. I hope that's the right address. I believe so. If not, just Google Empowered Podcasting Conference. Mark Ronick is running that thing, and it looks to be a good event. Now, I've never been there, so if it's not, it's, their marketing did a great job, but I kind of know Mark a little bit. I think he's going to put on a good, I listened to his show that he does daily on Clubhouse, and he seems like a good guy. So his brand is strong with that. Dan says, great job on the solo show. I hung in there. It wasn't quite as Ralph said. I might have been going at a little quicker pace, but I think I didn't go squirrel, 4 million times like I normally do. So I appreciate that. No show next week. We will be back whatever 2 weeks from today is, which is, if I pull up a calendar, would be October 4th. So we will kick into October with a new episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. I'll be telling you about my time at the Empowered Podcasting Conference on the School of Podcasting. And we'll probably talk about Randy Black a little bit. We're going to talk about what happens to your podcast if you die. And it's something I believe I talked about years ago, but I got to go to Todd Cochran's funeral this week, and that was and it was open casket, and it's one of those like, oh, are we still doing those? So that kind of caught me off guard. But we'll talk about that and some other things that are going on in the podcasting space. But I know myself, I am 60. I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but heaven forbid, I don't want to put this, I don't want to manifest this, but if I, tripped over a shoe and hit my head on a coffee table on the way to do lunch today, and I died, I got no passwords anywhere. Like, my family is in bad shape if I were to kick the bucket. And so I, with Todd, and then if we go back to Neil, every time a friend of mine dies, I go, yeah, I probably should do that. And I reached out to Gordon. Gordon is the guy if you want entertainment law kind of stuff, and if you need an LLC, if you need a contract read over, he's the entertainment lawyer, not the will lawyer. That's not his thing. And plus, he gave me great advice and said, and it's also really dependent on the state. So don't die out of state, because that messes everything up too. So thank you, Gordon, for that. Find him at firemark.com, and we will see you in 2 weeks with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.